Welcome to On the Couch. And then there was four. The second week of finals is in the rear vision mirror, and we look forward to prelim final week. We're going to cast our eyes back over what were two huge finals in the second week of finals. And the road to glory, boys, well, it becomes a little bit narrower, and only 4 teams remain, and 4 teams can win it.
Can't wait, boys. Biggest prelim final weekend in history. 95,000 pluses. It's going to be great to see. And 2 arch-rival games this century, isn't it, really? So obviously Collingwood, Brisbane with the grand final history, and Hawthorn, Geelong dates back to the 89 grand final. So can't wait for it.
Last 3 grand finalists. Play off again for the chance to go into another grand final. I think you're right. I think if you were to... people always talk about, Hawthorn, Essendon and the great rivalries of the 80s and 90s. I think in terms of modern-day rivalries that I've been involved in and the Hawthorn and Geelong Football Club has been involved in, that right there is the one that comes to mind.
We've all been to prelim finals, and it's the purest weekend of footy, as you mentioned, Brownie. 95,000 that get through the gate on Friday and Saturday afternoon. But what are your memories from prelim final, Geordie? Have you got a favourite?
Do I have well, dare I say, Geelong v Hawthorn.
Oh, right.
It's probably because of the heartache that we'd suffered from 2008 right up until that final. I think we were 21 or 22 points down at three-quarter time. Some wives had already left the ground to go home because they couldn't stand to watch Geelong win another game, Sarah Rufford. And then it was just a magical last quarter. So that was probably the one that sticks out.
Brownie, for you?
Sydney, I think going the long way round, 2003 when Bucks got a hold of us in the qualifying final. We had to go a long way home, 80,000 people at Olympic Stadium, and we knocked off the Swans. So that was a pretty amazing win.
Yeah, well, I can't say that was a good one. 02 was my first prelim. I was in my 8th year in the competition. We were able to beat the Crows to get into our first grand final. So that was absolutely packed MCG. Which, as you said, it's a pure weekend because mostly it's the clubs that are in the games that actually get the lion's share of the tickets. Grand final gets spread a little bit, but the loudest crowd I ever played in front of was a prelim.
Yeah, you'll never forget your first one. That first one, 2017.
Yeah.
You never ever.
Who'd you play?
We played the Giants to get into the grand final in 2017, and a side that will be there prelim final. They were there last year. Brownie, of course, is your team, the Brisbane Lions. The Q Clash, the third version for this year, was 1-1 leading into the weekend.
Yeah.
But the bigger brother, they flexed their muscle again and came out big winners.
Yeah, it's a good effort in 4 prelims in a row, so they've been a resilient team, 7 final series in a row. Funny games this year. So round 8, Brisbane absolutely smashed them at stoppage. Round 20, Gold Coast returned serve and smashed them at stoppage, and then back up to the Gabba, and Brisbane cleaned them up around stoppage or contest and pressure. Now, it wasn't necessarily big stoppage numbers from Brisbane, but look at that.
Such a big flip.
84 points. Now, even if you ask some of the Gold Coast Suns coaches, they realise that Brisbane are a long way below their best in that round 20 game. But 84 points, that is an absolute hammering. 7 goals from centre bounce. Now, the Lions turned that around, limited them to 8 points on the weekend. So that was fantastic. And it was on the back of a greater determination from their mids. They took great pride in their performance, and obviously they were really disappointed, bitterly disappointed in their performance, and they returned serve. The pressure was fantastic, Bucks, and they came and they meant business. Yeah,
well, Josh Dunkley was the one that really had the job on Matty Rowell, and to know that you need to look after a player like that on the opposition is one thing. Yeah. Then to be able to have the strategy, but then the personnel to be able to execute it. And Josh Dunkley was absolutely huge in that performance. 18 tackles and just...
It was amazing, I know we've had a lot of superlatives about this man and
that's astronomical, though. 18 tackles, and he really... You saw the difference between round 20 and this game, and that was off the back of Rowell and Anderson. Yeah. Had his pants pulled down on that Rowell last time.
He did, and he was disappointed. I spoke to him post-game, and I think he might have copped, or all their midfield might have copped a bit of needling from the coach. So I don't think Chris Fagan spent a lot of time on the Geelong loss the week before.
Tell us more.
I think a fair bit of the vision may have come from that round 20 game. And if you actually look at Josh Dunkley, he changed some things. He was... I think he just stuck to Rowell. He came with a purpose. Now, in this game, he just let Rowell have a clean run of the ball, which he hadn't allowed in the past. And this is the round 20 game. Yeah, Rowell was able to get there, dominate, 37 disposals, 15 clearances. I think Dunks was stung by that. And, so he came with the purpose, and he just made sure that every time Rowell touched the ball, and Rowell didn't have a shocker by any means, but he made sure that every time Rowell got the ball, he was going to be attacked and harassed and physically confronted.
But this wasn't a game that was played inside a lot. There were obviously clearances, but then the ball was out in the open quite a bit. Both teams are about 175 pressure rating. So Dunkley's performance to be able to stick 18 tackles in the game that was largely in transition, well, that just elevates that performance even further in my mind.
And just look at this graphic. This points to the mindset of Dunkley going in and the coaches. So look at that. The number on the left is that round 20 game. Like, that is an absolute hammering. So obviously Dunks took that personally. But he only played on the one on the left, he only played on for 44 minutes. Now, that's not good enough. The application to that role wasn't constant enough. 90 minutes in the semi-final on the weekend. So Dunks was going out there, no matter what, he was going to be beside Rao. If they come to the bench, they went to the bench together. So he made it his purpose to be with him the whole night.
You know him well. Is he that type of player, Josh Dunkley, that would have put his hand up and said, I want the job?
Monday.
After being beaten.
Monday he did. He went in there and said, nah, I've got to make amends for what I did in round 20. And that's exactly what he did.
How good is that?
Chris Fagan's not going to say no to him.
As a coach, you love that. You love it when your leaders come, because apparently Zorko did the same thing with Miller.
What did you see live? I mean, just from watching on TV, Gold Coast did look flat.
Yeah,
in terms of their energy and the big trip to Perth, how much do you think that would have... You give Brisbane credit, absolutely.
Yeah, that's right.
The first final for the Gold Coast, Fremantle, the trip back, they looked like they lacked energy.
That's right. And the way Fremantle moved the ball, a lot different to what Brisbane moved the ball. Brisbane really challenged them early. Obviously, the pressure was outstanding as well, but the way Brisbane moved the ball also challenged them defensively. So Damien Hardwick's not going to admit it publicly, but they certainly... Brisbane tested them early, and then they faded away energy-wise. And they looked like a side that was at the end of their campaign, albeit a really good campaign, no question about it. But to me, that's what it looked like.
Well, we know Lachie Neale at the moment, and he gave a little glimmer of hope that if they are to make the grand final, he might be available. But a man that has done it on the big stage, he's been the best player in a grand final with the Norm Smith, Will Ashcroft. Well, he nearly had the most complete game of his career on the weekend, Geordie.
I just wonder his attitude. You know, a lot gets spoken about in terms of McCluggage, a lot obviously gets spoken about in terms of Lachie Neale. I just wonder whether you sit back, and he looks like a pretty brash sort of kid, you sit back and go, hey, I've won a Norm Smith medalist, I'm a proven finals player already. Neale goes out, third year, and I just love his attitude.
You reckon it was a little reminder? You reckon?
I reckon, and you can only really do that with your actions. There's no point telling everyone how good your previous finals experience has been. You've got to go out and perform, and I think he did that on the weekend. And the thing that stood out to me was he's clearly got a good inside game. His disposal by hand, I think, is as good as anyone in the competition, how quick he does it and his vision. But what I loved was his spread from contest. And I think time after time on the weekend, he just has really good balance. So we talk about their ball movement from half-back, Brisbane, and on the weekend it was really on show. So you just see here the ability to challenge forward. So they've won the ball. So right now you can get on your bike and charge forward, blindside your direct opponent and really hammer down and add to that scoring ability. Once again, so Davies had a great game last week, but that was a poor contest decision to go over and not impact. Ashcroft, once again, great contested ball player, great inside player, but he realises when to go in and when to go forward. And the thing that I think is standing out, he's got gears to go to in terms of the way that he spreads. So when Brisbane score 8 goals, 5 from defensive half, he has 11 scoring involvements. He's involved on offence. His vision is elite. So I just think it was a timely reminder that, hey, we might have lost a dual Brownlow medalist and an All-Australian player, A-grade player, but don't sleep on me.
Well, they've had guys step up when Neale hasn't played. Zach Bailey's another one who came up last time, I think, in that cutthroat game versus Fremantle Brownie three weeks ago in the back end of the home and away season. And he went to the midfield and stepped up as well. But no Joe Danaher. It's been the hole. It's been the energiser they've been looking for. And it's a cast of a few that have actually stepped up that really set the level for the pressure and the intensity.
Yeah, it's a good point. Their energisers are really important to their team because, like you said, they've had a bit of makeshift, certainly contests head of the ball, but they're energising their team. Bailey, Lohman, Wilmot, Rayner especially. They kicked 7 goals between them. Wilmot had 26 disposals, but I think them, as a coach, Bucks, you rely on that. You know, this time of the year, you're carrying a few injuries. You need these guys.
Yeah, well, I thought Lohman in particular was up and about. You see him pre-match, and he drew the attention with the haircut, and obviously you're on the hook for a haircut possibly after a Brisbane success.
Yeah.
But I thought, but you're right about these, and they went into this they went in this game with everyone believing that maybe they had one punch left in them. But they've come out of that game, the way they played, they were top of the ground and they were running. I mean, they're going to be a handful against any opposition. It's going to be a cracking game against
That
Collingwood.
opposition will be against Collingwood on Saturday afternoon in the 5 p.m. slot. Just a quick one on Collingwood before we get on to the Gold Coast. Jeremy Howe looks like he'll be fit to play. We think he's a walk-up start for them. Bobby Hill's the intriguing one. Has to put together 2 weeks of really good training. We haven't cited him much over the back part of the season. Just a quick yes or no, do you pick Bobby Hill if he's fit to play and he's done everything in his power in the last 2 weeks?
It's a no from me. Culture, for me, overrides talent.
Brownie? No. Bucks?
I think when push comes to shove and you consider your very best sub, and that's about as far as you can go because he's not ready to play a full game of footy, I think that'll be the question. You know, whether they think that Bobby Hill can give them something. How's he played as a sub before, first and foremost? If he hasn't been in that position where you've had to sit on the pine for 2.5, 3 quarters, has he gone on and switched it on? I think that would be part of the consideration.
So you don't take into account the last 2 months, his behaviour?
That would be
1 quarter since.
That would be assuming that he's put a couple of weeks together, and we don't know.
So do you pick him as sub?
No is probably the answer, but you'd be tempted to.
I can see why they'd be a yes. He's certainly...
Jason Ecomanis was selected, and the culture piece was never, well, towards the end was not great, and then Lee Matthews put him across as a consultant for the rest of you boys to justify how he was.
I guess the difference is though, like Jace was incredibly professional.
Right, there you go.
So you know, and he turned up week in, week out of training. So a big difference, isn't it? You know, with what's been around the last 2 months.
Did you get your answer?
I would pick him.
Would you?
I think you pick your best team.
In your 22?
As your sub. I reckon you roll the dice on him as your sub player.
I wonder if the 23 grand final comes into play as Norm Smith medal.
I think there's a bit of weight on that.
We need a bit more time for this conversation.
I think there's a bit more weight on that as well. Well, there is the loser from the weekend in the Q Clash, and that was the Gold Coast Suns. And Damien Hardwick had this to say about his team's journey from this year and looking forward post-game.
We know there's areas that we've got to get better. Our players know those areas that we've got to get better. You know, we've got some young emerging talent that we're really excited about that we've got in our team at the moment that will help us. But also we've got some things that we need to address in our side that to go forward. So it's tough.
So what do you need, Dylan?
That's for me to know and you to find out.
Well, there's the famous line from the first ever press conference. Good to see you.
Well, you talk to him, so you tell us.
80% of the premiership team was there when he first walked in the door, and that's the team that went out in the Q Clash on the weekend in the second semi-final.
So Rioli's come in, Noble's come in.
We know David Swallow has retired. What do they need?
Well, their forward line it's patchwork, like put together. Farah came in the last 3 or 4 weeks, and I thought he was excellent in what he brought when Walter went out. Reed's still a young player that's on his way, you know, that's making his way. Ben Long's had an exceptional year. It's a mix and match forward line, but there's nothing wrong with that. Sometimes the best teams come together like that. But there's probably room for a little bit more class, you know, to help Bailey Humphrey along.
Need to build out that midfield depth. So Will Graham will come into that side. He's tough, and unfortunately had that shoulder injury late in the year. But they need to keep building more midfielders, certainly around the edges. I think of guys like Kane Lambert and that at Richmond. You know, those guys that were on the periphery but critical role players. So they need more of those.
That's what Sue Miller's become now.
Yeah,
and he
has.
plays that role well.
So there's some guys I think they'll be under a little bit of pressure there, and maybe an experienced key forward potentially. Obviously, we'll chat to Johnny Ralph in the second segment about that. But you know, I think they're progressing in the right direction. Their defence is pretty solid.
You've been pretty critical of Ben King and their forward setup. Did you see anything on the weekend that gave you confidence, or?
Well, the first mark gave me absolute confidence. We went back and he shoved Darcy Gardner in the chest and took a big contested mark. But after that, I feel like we got back to old Ben King. Now, athletically as gifted as any player in the competition, and he's certainly at that height. But in my eyes, he's a tall half forward.
So can you see
he's
them?
Not a brute.
Can you see them winning a premiership with him as their full forward?
They need either Ethan Reid to find form pretty quickly and grow up.
He's a key.
He's 3 years away. They need a bigger key forward.
Yep.
Jed Wild was a bigger key forward, but he's 19.
But he's in the same boat as Ethan Reid, as you've just said.
So you'd go after Curnow?
I'd go after someone.
Yep.
I'd go after someone just to make Ben King's job easier. like he is what he is. He's never going to be the big key forward that just throws his weight around and just creates a contest. He's a low possession full forward that might have 8 touches and kick 3 goals for you. And there's a spot for that. But that's a half forward for mine.
Yep.
That is a half forward for mine. Let's go to the other game from the weekend, Adelaide versus Hawthorn. And the Hawks just keep rolling, Geordie. They might be playing the best football of anyone at the moment.
Yeah, I think if you're trying to compare them from the Hawks last year to this year, I think they can win in different ways. Like their absolute one-wood last year was certainly their offence, their ability to move the ball and run and carry. And but I think what we saw on the week, like they're huge numbers and they really dismantled Adelaide. But I think what we saw on the weekend was a change in game, and we spoke about it at quarter time. Adelaide were able to have that spare. So then what they wanted to do was go really quick off that spare to not allow them to get hemmed in their back half. And the quarter, you could nearly read probably word for word what Sam Mitchell would have said. Hey, boys, slow it down. We don't want to get into a shootout with Adelaide because it means, 1, it zaps our energy, but 2, we can't control the game. From quarter time until the end of the game, they were in complete control.
And their front half, just on those numbers too, it's really impressive, their front half game. And so we know they can move from one end of the ground to the other. They've got a really strong defence, but both games against Adelaide recently, they've scored heavily from the front half. So when they methodically get it there, they're able to set up well, aren't they?
I think that's the other thing, and that's what I'll watch this week against Geelong. When you slow the ball down, clearly that allows you to equalise forward of the ball. So once they got equal numbers, and I think they've got the great ability to work together as smalls and talls, which is also important. But their front half game, you're right, that became a really important part. Once you equalise, that part of your game needs to be on to put into a score that can win the game. But it just shows to me that they've been able to win in different ways this year. So that's the progression, I think, from last year.
Reputations are built in September. And there is a new Mr. September down at Glenferrie Oval, and that is John Newcomb Bucks.
Yeah, so
what an incredible...
Hodgie's flat.
You were talking about winning in different ways. You know, these are John Newcomb's 4 finals. So to be able to go bang, bang, bang.
Incredible.
And then Adelaide knew exactly what they were dealing with. And they knew exactly what they had to combat in some shape or form. But the beginning to this game was just through the roof. And John Newcomb's numbers, the way that he was able to jump into the contest in those first 2 or 3 centre bounces and set Hawthorn alight was
What did you see?
Well,
have a look at that.
So it's just his spatial awareness is excellent. Like, I mean, and Barry's not a. I mean, he's not a. He's a very combative player. He was getting in and about. He's a very good tackling player. But Newcomb, he's like a barrel. Like he's that hard to bring down. And we'll look at Rayner and how he, missed tackles or forces missed tackles, and that's exactly what John Newcomb does. But he's got a spatial awareness, the ability to go left or right hand, left or right foot. He's not lightning. He hasn't got lightning speed, but he just can find a way out of any contest at any stage. He tracks the middle of the ground consistently. So he's always in the corridor for potentially to defend, or in the corridor to get involved in corridor wrap. He's just he's a brilliant player, low anxiety player, and I reckon that has him heading into finals because he doesn't waste any energy, he doesn't get too overawed, and he just goes and does his job.
You look at the tag, so Barry went to him. Now, Barry's not a big tagger. Willem Drew, I think, slowed him down in the second half of the final last year. Willem Drew's a bigger guy, but you do have to pose the question, if a Mullen went to him this week, who did a good job on McCluggage last week, still a tough matchup because he is a brute and he could physically overwhelm a smaller tagger.
Well, they've got 2, Brownie. It's either Mullen or O'Connor.
Or Atkins, yeah.
Or Atkins. Atkins is a bit more run with rather than full-blown tag, but the 2 Irishmen for the Cats are the ones that do the job.
Yeah, I think you'd be watching tape on all 3. And I think you'd be watching Mullen. Mullen did a really good job on McCluggage, clearly. And I think if McCluggage was to revisit that game and just the different stuff you can do as a tagger. So in this game, Mullen either started as a midfielder or came up as a half-forward to get on McCluggage. And I think if this happened to Newcomb, what you would do differently to what McCluggage was able to do, you either go make a 2v1, so then just make that an absolute fight. What you can't do if Mullen goes to you is just try and beat him one-on-one. He's proven himself to be too good, really hard to get away with, and he will not leave your side. So as much as you possibly can, if you're John Newcomb and it is Mullen, make 2v1s. If it's not a 2v1, go and block for someone. It is the easiest thing you can do if you are tagged, and the most annoying thing you can do if you're being tagged. So once again, when he went to McCluggage, it was just they were operating in silos. So just their direct opponent, trying to beat them in stoppage. It is tough.
Is his senior coach the best person to look to in terms of
Absolutely.
dealing with the tags? Sam Mitchell's relationship with John Newcombe this week would be just dialed up. This is how I did it. They would be going to town on it, surely.
Yeah, absolutely. And Mitch did it better than anyone. So he might have to sacrifice a little bit of his game to help the Hawthorn side manipulate the way stoppages are going. But you'd be doing it a little bit differently.
What about drop the tag? All of a sudden, Jai's looking for the bloke to come to him. He doesn't come. Just send your bull in there. Send Dangerfield in there.
I don't think
head
you
to
can.
head.
Yeah, I don't think you can with Newcombe.
It's one of the only weapons. If Newcombe fires Hawthorn a chance, if he doesn't, they're so thin through the midfield.
Yeah, I think you need to go to him. And I think it would be an arrogant move if you didn't. They've got stoppers in that side to do a specific role. Mullen's not a ball getter. He can't read the game in open play as well as the others.
Are you more worried about clearance for Newcombe or transition?
I think both. I think he's got a good mix.
But what about the types like a Watson and that who Mullen would be handy on?
So maybe a Mullen or O'Connor comes up and goes onto Newcombe. I think it needs to be a tight tag.
It's going to be an important clash in that big game. Let's get on to the loser from that game, Adelaide. Straight sets in the City of Churches, and which it was disappointing. And we look back, they've come from 15th to 1st. But their draw difficulty, Brownie. The second easiest. It's the only time they're going to get it. They're going to have a hard draw next year. And this shows that they certainly... They reap sort of what they...
You've got to take that into account. It is a big thing. So Brisbane had a really hard draw, especially the second half of the year. Adelaide had the second easiest. Now, this is not to downplay their efforts. So they had a fantastic year. But I think even you talked to the Adelaide insiders, they realised that the Crows went off the boil a bit late in the season. So if you actually look at the games, they played North Melbourne, Collingwood, who'd lost about 6 in a row. West Coast, Hawthorn, who they conceded the first 5 goals to in that round 21 game, and Port Adelaide. So not exactly the strongest draw and conditioning going into your first final series. So you've got to take that into consideration, no question about it. And they'd be bitterly disappointed by the 8 lost quarters that they played in the finals. So you have to ask the question. No doubts they're going to be better for it next year, you would have thought, because they've experienced finals. But is there scarring to individual players because of their individual performances in the heat of September?
I think there has to be. There has to be. If you've dropped off that much when it's really mattered and when the whips are cracking, I mean, that's a big fall from grace to go from 18 wins, no matter how easy your draw is, and to see these players that, you know, and that's obviously 1 to 44. We just had a look at Newcombe in the Hawthorn game, the number 1 ranked player in the field. Riley O'Brien 44th in that particular. So that's across the players that are on the field in that particular game. I think it does leave a mark. I mean, so Adelaide, minor premiers, lose both, go out in straight sets. Gold Coast finish 7th. We have a great win over in Freo and then get done, but who feels better at the end of the year? Yeah. When you've won a final, at least you've got something to hang your hat on, especially if it's your first. Adelaide have got a way to go to be able to, you know, to get back to where they were as minor premiers and then to do better again.
The glaring thing for me there is Darcy Fogarty and where he ranked.
What did you see?
Well, this has been the 3-headed monster all year for Adelaide. And it's failed twice in big finals. And I think they would be asking serious questions about if they play 3 key forwards next year. So if it puts more pressure on Tex Walker than anyone else. Riley Thilthorpe will obviously be a bona fide star. Fogarty's still younger. But Tex Walker at his age, I mean, he's getting to the age where they start talking about whether he retires or plays on. It puts a whole bunch of pressure on Adelaide and Tex Walker's relationship.
Would you keep him around just to be a 10-game player, 15-game player, to help and educate, or you just go...
I just think it's proven now that 3-headed monster didn't work in finals.
Fogarty had an excellent season, but didn't fire. Didn't fire when it mattered. Thilthorpe had an excellent season, but didn't fire when it mattered. Apparently he was crook in that qualifying final, but they just fell apart. And your question goes back to your question: will it leave scars? I think it absolutely does, because the hard work that it takes to get there. And that was that's 3-4 years for that side to regenerate to get to that point. Now, potentially you do have to have that fall short moment to go back to the well and then dig even deeper and work harder for your next opportunity, but it's a long way back.
One man that may be having scars is Mark Keane. He had the big role on Jack Gunston and looked all at sea against the lead-up forward, the premier lead-up forward of the competition, the All-Australian.
Well, mate, you're probably the best to comment on how you play a key forward, but I mean, it was so early, so evident early on the way that Keane was playing Gunston is not the way that you play Jack Gunston. You can't let him have that lead-up space. You need to be...
We all know he's leading here. He's finding body just to tick lead up. He is a lead-up forward. So you have to play him
in front,
just in front on the shoulder and force him into the pocket. Don't let him find body. You've got to be really physical with him. You see Keane just gave him way too much leg rope there.
I mean, we were talking... I reckon it was in the first 5 minutes that we could see that it wasn't. So you either need a coach or the forward coach, the defending coach, to say, hey, change your starting position, or he was just...
Well, you do have to look at yourself as coaching staff, though, because we saw that Brisbane on Saturday night made the courageous move with Darcy Gardner, who was beaten by King in the first 10 minutes. And it was an early, tough call to make, but they made it. And Adelaide... Yeah, the writing was on the wall very early on. And
well, it looked
Adelaide,
like they didn't have a plan B for him, Brownie.
Yeah, I thought Worrell would have gone back there. You know, I think Worrell's played as an intercept, but he had played on Gunston previously as well for a period of time.
Murray was the one that went back and he did it well.
Yeah.
Let's look at Jack Gunston, because he has had a day out against the Cats, and obviously a fierce rivalry Easter Monday this year. And Jack Gunston was fantastic against what was an undermanned defence here. Obviously, Henry was the one, Bucks, that didn't play this day, and he got hold of the youngster.
Yeah, I think O'Sullivan was asked in his first half dozen games to go and play as a key back for a couple of these games early in the year, and Geelong looked all at sea in the cohesion of their back six. I think Henry makes a massive difference to them, but Gunston was a thorn in the Cats' side in this particular match on Easter Monday, and the Cats will go to school to make sure they don't give him this sort of supply, because he'll find space.
He's up on Deconing.
He'll find space.
That last bit of footage wasn't
well,
great, was
I think he just loses concentration. But I think that's the way that Hawthorn will try and go inside their forward 50. I wouldn't expect too many long bombs. I think there would be a heap of movement forward of the ball and more of that sort of lead-up type. So quicker ball movement off half-back to try and give yourself an open forward line to have those sort of lead-up options. Because if it's higher, Geelong will eat them up.
Yeah, well, there's plenty happening on the field, but there is plenty happening off the field as well. John Ralph joins us live on the set next, and this is the biggest talking point in town. Where does Zach Merrett end up next year? Is he a bomber or is he a bomber?
I'm extremely humbled and really, really grateful, but super excited to get started. I thought throughout the process, just going to be authentically me, and the more I was, the more it became clear that that's what the Melbourne Footy Club needed as well. Just feel like I bring a unique experience and skill set that people want to be around. I want my players to drive to work every day to be with a massive smile on their face, knowing they're going to be stimulated, have a lot of fun, but be challenged as well. I feel like every club should be aiming to play finals, and we're no different. We'll be chasing to be a contender in September again, that's for sure.
Big news out of the Melbourne Football Club announcing that Stephen King will coach the club in season 2026 and beyond. And when the big news is breaking, we go to our news breaker. Usually we go to the studio, but you're in studio here with us. Ralphie, and off your deathbed as well, mate. Friday night, you were a bit croaky. I had to check this morning. You right to go?
I'm just a little bit better. By Friday and preliminary final, I will be absolutely cherry ripe. I hope, anyway.
Bit of Lemsip.
A little bit of Lemsip, yeah. Hey, fantastic appointment there for a good Belmont High boy in Stephen King. So he says they'll bring a brand of football that is uniquely Melbourne, as you heard in that press conference. He says we can play finals next year. You don't get rid of your stars. You don't get rid of your 30-plus players. Everyone wants to know. Petracca and Oliver, what happens? Here is the Melbourne coach today.
I think the experience that we've got here, I want to try and keep those experienced players here for as long as possible, because premiership players don't grow on trees, and to have them on your side while you're bringing in the youth of tomorrow and today, that's going to be a really important part of the way I want our team to play.
So that's all very well. This time last year, Christian Petracca wanted to burn the joint down. So desperate to get out. This year, he's not desperate, but I think he's open to a fresh start. He's open to a club that potentially could see him win another premiership. I think his teammates don't believe that he's checked out, but they're not sure that he's 100% invested. It's hard when you have that trade refused. Zach Merrett's in that situation. Geordie, you know him well, you know the players well. What's your sense of his determination, desperation to move to another club?
Oh, I think his performances this year on field, what did he come second or third
Second in the best and fairest,
second in the best and fairest. So I think he's always got the ability to perform at a high level when required. And as he said, that's what he's paid to do. So you do that. You always wonder what happens in the locker room, especially after what happened last year. And I think I was very vocal on, if a player shows a desire to leave, I think you try and entertain that deal if you possibly can. I don't know, I just sit back now, 12 months on, that conversation is still around. It must be that he's still got a desire to be somewhere else. So you just wonder what that does internally to the players. Is it the same player that he was 12 months ago? Not performance-wise, but around the locker room. Is he still invested?
Investment.
Is he still invested? Only the players genuinely know that, and Christian generally knows that. So I think Stephen King will have to make a decision relatively quickly.
Would a club like Adelaide be into him? Because Adelaide clearly needs gun midfielders.
Yeah, and you know what? They haven't got a pick this year, Melbourne, and I think they've got a lot of exciting older players and they've got a nucleus of young kids. They haven't got enough A-graders that are young, so they need to get into this draft. So if Adelaide would say, we'll give you that first-round pick this year and next year, I think it'd be something that Stephen King would have to think about. Yes, you want to play finals. We all know that this premiership window is probably 3 to 5 years down the track.
The one thing that would be, in my mind, if I'm Christian Petrarca, I wonder how different next year will be with a new coach.
Yeah,
and whether that does invigorate me, and whether that does actually mean that we're a finals contender, because that could potentially flip his his mindset around.
We might have said that about Zach Merrett a couple of years ago as well.
We'll get on to Zach Merrett very soon. Ralphie, the new coach, has been anointed Stephen King. It was set to be prelim final week, but I think it caught a few people off guard when it was announced last week before the weekend's games.
Yeah, no doubt about that. And so the delay there was because Nathan Buckley was to meet a trio of Tasmanian heavies tomorrow. As it turns out, Melbourne pulled the trigger before him. So those heavies are Alistair Lynch, the football director, Grant O'Brien, the president, and Brendan Gale, who I think you probably met a couple of times. Let's not talk about boat races. This is not a boat race, after all, we've learned with Melbourne. So, but Tassie's categoric tonight. This is in the early stages. We haven't got a licence, we haven't got a stadium, we haven't got a list allowance. So Nathan will meet with them, they will meet with other candidates. But it seems such a nice fit because you've got young players to coach. They get a flagpole, a figurehead. This is the bloke who was our coach.
This is the Sydney to Hobart. Don't worry about that.
This is the boat race.
Absolutely. They want this man. Surely they want this man.
We already said he was $1.01 for the other one.
Well, I only know my side of it, and that is ultimately, I had to risk sacrificing an opportunity to coach Melbourne to keep an opportunity to coach Tasmania because the timelines just didn't match up. And Melbourne rightfully made the decision on a coach that absolutely was all in and wanted to do the job, and that was Stephen King. So they've made the very much the right call. I was more attracted to the Tasmanian job than I was to the Melbourne job. So
you're surprised how quickly it moved, though. It did seem to move quicker than we all thought.
The Melbourne job. Oh, look, yeah, but in the end, I said, can I have a couple more days? And, that was enough for them to say, no, we've got our guy, we're not going to wait. And I'm fine with that.
Did it catch you off guard, though? Because they'd said that they were going to make the decision prelim week, and you're meeting tomorrow, which you've said, with the Tasmanian Football Club. Did it catch you off guard that they said, no, you can't have those 2 days?
No, I put myself in Melbourne's shoes and I go, OK, you've come down to two guys. One that says he's absolutely can. You're going to tell me I've got the job? I'm in. When do we start? What do we do? We'll fix everything up on the go. And the other guy says, can you just wait three days or so? So I think it's a really easy decision for Melbourne.
But you've taken a team to a grand final, mate.
Oh, yeah, fair enough.
I think I would wait if I was in that situation. If I was sitting on the Melbourne board, I think an extra 2 or 3 days is not going to hurt them. Who are they
Especially when you've set the timeline on
who are they competing against?
Well, no one was expecting them to announce it. I would have thought it would have been the back end, maybe Thursday leading into the prelim week, but it just seemed rushed.
Why Tassie? Why Tassie? What captivates you about Tassie that didn't about Melbourne?
No, look, I've behind the scenes had a few chats with Brendan along the time and been involved in the program the process for a couple of years. Not as much as Jack, but I just think it's an opportunity to build something from scratch is something that doesn't come around that often. And prosecuting the Melbourne case and where I sit in my coaching career, I do want to coach again, and I haven't really been able to say that until probably about a month ago. So yeah, look, I'm really involved in I'd love to be involved in the Tassie process and that journey. I'll have a chat with them tomorrow and see, if that's involved in a more official capacity.
One more before we let you off the hook, Bucks. Are you glad you went through the process?
Absolutely, yeah. I as I said openly, and I was openly here and to Melbourne, that I was prosecuting them and my interest and my gut feel around a coaching opportunity. So I was able to work out my side of it, that yes, this is what I'd like to do again. I've still got to find the right fit, and I've still got to get the opportunity to have a club believe that I can help them along their journey. But this side of it, I'm a lot clearer on now than I was a month ago.
Good luck tomorrow. Ralphie, Zach Merrett, he's been in the headlines, it's been bubbling away, but the groundswell is starting to build for the Essendon champ.
Yeah, so no doubt Essendon will continue to deny it. We're not trading this bloke under any circumstances, but this one has shifted and significantly across the weekend. This is a club, Essendon now, who's realising we have to trade our captain. We just have to make sure we get the best possible deal. So what will happen is his manager, Tom Petroro, will be the one who effectively brokers this deal. Now, the problem is that Essendon will say we want 2 first-round picks and maybe another quality player, and Hawthorn is always hard to deal with. They were hard to deal with in the Tom Barrass situation. They'll say he's probably worth pick 8. Merrett is required by the AFL at Monday's Brownlow medal. He's talking about giving the captaincy away. He's talking about, potentially not turning up in the best and the fairest. He doesn't have to do that. Just say, I want to be traded. I think all of you guys who have been in senior leadership positions, you know that he can't walk back into that club now as captain, and probably not next year under any circumstance.
I was interested with Nick Martin and Mason Redmond, teammates of his, coming out publicly and criticising me. Very rarely you see teammates get involved in the public narrative when it comes to business decisions.
So what does that tell you, Brownie? Does that tell you that...
I just wonder whether they were pushed up by the club. Were they mouthpieces for the club?
The club would say no, that it wasn't orchestrated, even though rival clubs would say, well, that's the inescapable conclusion. They said that the players were so upset about people talking about their culture and the fabric of the club that they went to Craig Vozzo, the club's chief executive, and then those media interviews were arranged. It certainly drove a wedge between the club. And so all I'd say is to say, OK, Zach, you keep your head high. Don't have to threaten all of these things. You're a great leader. You want to move on, get that trade done. Guys, Brad Scott in February talked about Sam Draper, and he talked about keeping players at the footy club when they didn't want to be there. Here's his quote in part. A player in the end resents it and looks back and thinks that they were either guilted into staying or coerced into staying. We've just talked about Christian Petracca. Do you fundamentally agree with that you cannot keep players who did not want to be there, even if they're your captain?
There is situations. Ryan O'Keefe wanted to get out of Sydney and won a Norm Smith medal the next year in a premiership team. So it has happened.
It's the exception to the rule, though.
It is an exception.
And the difference in the Petracca situation is there isn't much else changing at Essendon.
But even the difference between those two players, and no offence to Sam Draper, but he ain't at the level that Zach Merrett is, and he's not the captain of the football
and an unrestricted
club.
free agent, and Essendon would say it's different, but fundamentally...
And not as public.
Yep.
So I just think these... At the start, I think I said on this show that Essendon should be doing as much as they possibly can to keep him. I don't think that's the case anymore. I don't think what's happened, those relationships internally can't be repaired. I know if I was a player, an Andrew McGrath or someone like that, I couldn't forgive a player that's been so public about wanting to get out and meeting with other clubs as a captain of the football club and a contracted player.
And you might be okay on the surface and you might get it 95% right, but as we see, this time of year is when the bonds get tested and you can go through the home and away without a problem, but then when the pressure comes on, something will crack and that's where the gaps are found. So I don't think... you've got to be thinking, are you building a club that can be successful in September, not one that's just going to win home and away games.
Ralph, we've got to go to a break very quickly, but Charlie Curnow in the Gold Coast, what's that looking like?
So Gold Coast spent the final series denying that they're interested in Curnow. People who would know suggest that the coach in Damien Hardwick is very interested in him. He doesn't want to trade away Ethan Reid, doesn't want to trade away his Nepo babies in Jed Walter, but this is 15 years in the waiting. Finally, a superstar player says, I want to play with you. There's got to be a way in which this club can get it done over the next 4 weeks.
Plenty to play out on the Gold Coast and at the Carlton Football Club too. We're going to grab a quick break, and after this, we're going to do the good, the bad and the ugly. Welcome back to On the Couch. It's time for the good, the bad and the ugly, and I'm going to kick us off for the good. And you look for heart and soul players in prelim finals leading up. This from the semi-final on the weekend. Blake Hardwick just loved this little action of desperation here. It's only a small thing, Geordie, but he's a player. You look at players and you go, I would have loved to have played with him. And Blake Hardwick is certainly one of those.
Absolutely. I'll tell you who else, Ty Gallup, the young fella from the Brisbane Lions.
Come along in here.
Absolutely. 12 disposals on the weekend. Kicked his first goal.
That's a good goal.
That mark on Sam Collins, mind you, one of the better defenders in the competition. So I love it. He got a big set of shoulders on him. Something that I'm quite fond of.
Look at the Dunso there.
I've completely lost mine. Tell you I've compared him to the great Martin Leslie. Team, was he a teammate of yours?
Big shoulders.
Big shoulders.
Absolutely.
Have a look at him. So bright future, the young lad.
You're going back in the archives there.
Big Martin Leslie. Number 1 draft pick too, mate.
From the same night, I thought Cam Rayners, we know that he's a big game player, but for him, like tackling him is we were talking about John Newcombe, how hard it is, but the aggression that Cam Rayner played with, and he found himself in the middle of the corridor so often and creating opportunities for the Lions. Now, if the Suns stick that tackle against him, it goes back the other way, but so 8 broken tackles against him, equal most by any player in a final. It's exceptional.
Our man David King called him the untackleable one. So just a bit long for the commentator.
The untackleable one.
The untackleable.
Well, I'm going to go, that's my bad, but you can have your bad now.
Guy Lohman's haircut. So now he turned up. Now, could risk being a distraction to his teammates. Look at the lines on the side, though. I like that little detail, but apparently the barber got it wrong. So they went a little bit high with the undercut because he had the long locks, so he had to shave it off. But he delivered 13 disposals, 3 goals.
Good.
And I have vowed, if the Lions win the flag, I'll add the 2 little stripes to the side.
We'll get that on the Monday show. That'd be good. I look forward to it if they win the flag.
Charity, I reckon.
I don't know what you blokes were like with your old man, but you'd get him a ticket to every single game and made sure that he had a seat. I think this is disrespectful by the 2 Ashcroft boys.
You've got 2 kids playing.
You got 2 kids playing. All that Marcus has done for his 2 boys to get them to the point where they're playing AFL, good AFL football. He's out there changing the light glows. For God's sake, get the man a seat.
Well, we haven't got this bloke in the elite kicks in the competition, but he's stooped to new lows, unfortunately.
Oh, that's low hanging.
He was actually, I reckon he was trying to kick it back up to himself and didn't actually get back down to his
Is it even
foot.
a kick? Does that class as a kick?
Yeah, under the knee, mate. Under the knee.
Very good. Geordie the Ugly.
Well, this is the sad news story over the weekend. A good teammate of mine, Luke Bruce, playing in the VFL, and I'm sure everyone saw the vision, so we don't need to show the vision.
It's
but,
sad.
I mean, he's had a fantastic career, but it's a really bad injury. He goes into surgery tomorrow, so wishing him all the best in his recovery.
No, my ugly was the 300 gamer from the Brisbane Lions. I just caught a bit of social media action here and an ad just celebrating his favourite hotels.
Oh, geez, that calf's a bit tight.
I thought the pain ended in retirement.
Easy, you'll be here soon enough.
Let's enjoy the tranquility.
Stay where the players stay. Book at all.com.
Oh, Buck.
That's
Sorry, you were in it too, actually.
That's Logie worthy.
What do you say, tranquility?
Geez, you were looking good too.
Yeah,
well done.
Mate,
Well done.
remember his acting skills in Best on Ground? Underrated physical performer.
Who's next?
Very good,
I'll
very
go
good.
next to the old coach Lee Matthews. Now, tip of the iceberg, he used to say. When he said little things above the surface he wasn't happy with, this tip of the iceberg. I'll take you to the production meeting. Lee, while we're having a pre-production meeting on Saturday, was watching the races on his phone, and he got the winner of the last at Flemington, didn't give us the tip of $10.
He owned it.
And guess what happened half an hour later? This is what you get, Lee, for not paying attention to the production
Lee
meeting.
Matthews, what are you looking for in this second half?
They got beaten in the first half, Sarah, that they actually around the middle of the ground.
Very good. Very
doing that when he's not here.
Very good.
Yeah, I would have done it.
Those that live in glass houses shouldn't throw stones at him. Now, on the night before, on the Friday night, so we have this play after half-time where we sort of just be mucking around.
Look busy, boys.
We don't need to be on camera at all. But so have a look at John O'Brien here. He's actually picked up his microphone thinking that we're about to talk. And then Louis and I thought that this was pretty humorous.
Someone was joking and said,
Already.
we're on air,
Yeah,
we're on air.
Brownie's ready to go on air. He's ready to go.
You just pointed and laughed at him. True Jordan Lewis form.
You know what? I'd much rather be prepared. It's okay. I can look like a fool, but I'm prepared.
Okay.
Unlike my old coach.
No, correct.
Hey, you look like a goose.
Very good. Well, it's always good to be prepared, and that's what 4 sides will be doing this weekend leading into the prelim finals. The purest weekends of footy starts Friday night. The Hollywood Hawks Well, it's usually an Easter Monday clash, but they take on Geelong at the MCG. Going to be 95 in the house there. Can't wait to see that one. And then, of course, Saturday afternoon, same ground, probably a bigger crowd as well as the Collingwood Army roll in live 4 p.m. and they take on the Brisbane Lions.
Celebrate you, baby. I have to praise you like I should.
Welcome back to On the Couch. And before we sing the praises, boys, I want to take a little trip down memory lane. We've been lucky to have Lee Matthews sitting between the couches at times this year. And Lee had this to say in March about State of Origin footy.
The first week of March now, we play the first fair income game, right? And you're watching it's brutally and physically demanding, and that's the start of about 29 weeks. This thought of playing State of Origin in the middle of February is either crazy or demeaning State of Origin, one or the other.
Yeah.
Well, call me crazy, Lee. They're playing State of Origin footy. It's been announced Western Australia are taking on Victoria February 14 next year over at Perth. Well, it's great to sing the praises of State of Origin footy is back, Geordie.
Is it Valentine's Day?
It is Valentine's
It
Day.
is. You're going to be busy. what happened to South Australia? The Alloys.
Well, no, we
didn't
maybe next
choose it.
year.
Hey?
I didn't choose
Okay.
it.
Your turn will come.
Send that
Gotta
across
wait.
to
I think
AFL.
they embraced, the public embraced it well, the All-Stars game, didn't they?
Well, it was a good sample size as well, and it's going to be fantastic. I mean, Perth Stadium is such a great stadium, and they are so parochial about their Western Australians over there that to come with the big V, come across the Nullarbor, it's going to be
And let's be
great
honest,
way
by the
to
end of
season.
Feb, you are sick of training anyway.
Yes,
You want to play.
wanna
footy.
play.
You want to play. Footy.
How real will it be, Bucks? Like
this
for the
is-
coaches and the players, like
Middle of Feb.
This
Middle
is a
of
new
Feb.
era. The coaches hardly get access to the players these days, mate.
Yeah.
So you've only got maybe 5 or 6 weeks pre-Christmas, if that. If you've played finals, it's only 3 weeks, and then you've only got 2 weeks out of there before you wave them goodbye
That's
to
all
them.
the
and go to
coaches
a-
need.
What would your instruction
That's all the
be?
coaches need.
What would your instruction be if you were coaching a group? Obviously, some of your players are playing that game. Would you?
No, look, you can't hold the players back. They're entitled to go and do it, and if they really want to do it, then go for it. It can round off preparation, assuming you've had a good pre-season. If you haven't had a good pre-season, when you're not being put up.
I wonder who the coaches will be.
Oh, it's going to be interesting. Quick wrap before we finish up the show. Who's going to win this weekend? I've got Collingwood versus Geelong in the grand final. Geordie?
Hawthorn, Collingwood.
Hawthorn, Collingwood?
Brisbane, Geelong. Can't be Hawthorn, Geelong. Can my old teammate Chris Scott and my team.
Brisbane, Geelong.
I've got Geelong winning Friday and Collingwood winning Saturday.
Oh, we have set up for 2 fantastic games of footy. Cannot wait. It is the purest weekend in footy. Set up, obviously, Friday night will be a huge game. Geelong versus Hawthorn. And then Saturday night will be the Pies versus Brisbane. And we'll be back here next Monday on the couch. See you then.